everyone, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 5 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host, Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches in Lucha Underground history with match number 46 on our list, which is the match between Pentagon Dark and Reklusa from the October 10th, 2018 edition of Lucha Underground titled Skeletons and Spiders. This match exceeds any expectation anybody could have had upon it. It is phenomenal. It's a great scrap. Intergender wrestling, I've talked about it, is something that Lucha Underground tended not to shy away from, and it was presenting it on television, during a period where we wouldn't see any of that in any other promotion. So, depending on what your stance is on intergender wrestling, if you're for it, then Lucha Underground was certainly a promotion for you during its existence. This match, though, like I said, it far, out punches its weight, absolutely. Reklusa, if you don't know, is Chelsea Green. This was during a time, I've talked a little bit about, the Tough Enough connection, in Lucha Underground. So she appeared on the, when WWE tried to bring Tough Enough back. Ultimately, that didn't work out for her. It led to her, really reinventing herself in Impact Wrestling as Laurel Von Ness and, also Laurel Von Mess. And she did a really great job with that character. Ultimately, her and Impact parted ways, and she popped up right at the tail end of Season 4 of Lucha Underground. So again, the bottom part of this list is really heavy on the Season 4 matches. And this one was absolutely a highlight of that season. So essentially, we won't get too much in the story of Pentagon Jr., Pentagon Dark, whatever you want to call them at this point in the series for this particular match, but we will get to it as time goes on, I'm sure. We'll talk a little bit about Reklusa, though. So Marty the Moth Martinez, who again is someone that we will talk a lot about during this countdown, he was given a big main event push in Season 4 of Lucha Underground, one that would ultimately lead to him winning the Lucha Underground Championship from Pentagon. He would cash in the Gift of the Gods title, which we've talked about is sort of a version of Money in the Bank. Normally, you're not allowed to do like a surprise attack to cash in that title and take your Lucha Underground title shot. Marty the Moth, was the exception to that rule. There was some storyline behind it, where essentially he had paid Antonio Cueto, to allow him to use that, cash it in as that surprise, right? And that was, at a backstage segment, or a cinematic segment, I should say, prior to the week where he would ultimately win the title and get that surprise win to end the episode where he became champion. He'd done that, though, with the help of Reklusa. So Marty the Moth, him and his sister, the Mariposa, they had a feud with Sexy Star that lasted, throughout Season 2, Season 3. And Sexy Star would constantly get, spiders and things like that. Ultimately, it was to lead to a feud between her and Reklusa. Sexy Star and Lucha Underground parted ways, come Season 4. Sexy Star is, again, somebody that we will talk about later on in this series. Someone that ultimately, from all accounts, is not a very good person. So, hence that kind of falling out they had. So, we actually, when we got Reklusa's debut, she came out with the mask of Sexy Star, basically to say, like, I'm the person that they had been, building up for a season's worth of video packages. But she helped Marty beat Pentagon, cashing in the Gift of the Gods to win the title. So this is the big revenge match. And boy, oh boy, is it ever a revenge match. So Reklusa, to her credit, she starts this match hot and heavy. And while Pentagon is making his entrance, she actually hits him with a crossbody from the top rope to the floor, and just, proceeds to start punching him. And it was really cool because, it really established her. We hadn't seen her in action at this point, and it established her as she, as being a threat. And as being a threat to, the face of Lucha Underground at this point, Pentagon Jr. So really smart to start the match like that, rather than just have it be Pentagon, decimating this woman for 10 to 15 minutes. That said, we do get a lot of that decimation. They did a really awesome spot here where it kind of becomes a bit of a trope in the brawl type Lucha Underground matches where they have, a series of wooden chairs on the floor that fans would sit in, and that, somebody would get whipped through those wooden chairs. And often we would see somebody seated in those wooden chairs, and, somebody would run and hit a dive or a cannonball or something like that into the chairs. So that's what they go for here, where Reklusa tries to do a cannonball into Pentagon into the chairs, but he actually catches her and then gives her a powerbomb on the ring apron that was brutal. And from there, like I said, it's basically him getting his revenge. He whips her through the chairs, he kicks her in the legs and hits overhand chops and just brutalizes her until she starts to get rolling again with some offense. And again, incredibly impressive offense. Stuff that I've never seen Chelsea Green do in any other match outside of this match. And she really, made it her advantage that she was wrestling, a strong man like Pentagon and someone that's such a great base, right, with that lucha background. She hits a Hurricane Rana from the top rope out to the floor to Pentagon, who's standing on the cement floor. Again, it looked beautiful. That move is such a high degree of difficulty and could easily go so wrong. And that's not something that you might see Chelsea bust out against a lot of the women that she would normally find herself in the ring with. But she did it here, and it looked incredible. And then she followed that up with a suicide dive into a DDT on the floor. Again, same thing. And then in the ring, hit a big satellite DDT, right? A tilt-a-whirl into a DDT. It was great stuff. Really took me by surprise at the time when I watched this match, because again, like I said, I've never seen her do anything like that. Pentagon, though, he rallies back and just, again, goes to town on this poor woman. He hits the Pentagon driver, which is like Matt Seidel's Here It Is driver, like a half Nelson and a pump handle turned into a Michinoku driver. Gets 2 for a really great near fall. He's used that as a finish countless times in Lucha Underground. He goes for a package pile driver. Chelsea slips out, climbs the top, he hits an enziguri, and then proceeds to package pile driver on the ring apron. Brutal stuff. Again, not something that you would really see Chelsea Green take moves like that a lot too in the matches she would normally participate in. So really shocking. And again, they put her over so well, and they give her the kick out after the package pile driver on the apron. It takes Pentagon some time to get her in the ring and make the cover, so it wasn't, a complete head scratcher of, to take that suspension of disbelief, which is something we do often enough in Lucha Underground. But it was really cool and a really cool moment. She gets one last big hope spot. She hits a low blow and a Canadian Destroyer, which is the move she hit on Pentagon, which led to him losing the Lucha Underground title. This time it's only enough for 2. She proceeds to get a little too arrogant, and she does this Cero Miedo, that taunt that Pentagon does, in his face, and he proceeds to hit her with a backstabber and then give her a running package pile driver. There was no way she was getting up from that, and that was enough for 3. Our post-match here is really good too. So Marty the Moth had challenged Pentagon to a Cero Miedo match in the main event of Ultima Lucha 4. That had already been announced. So Pentagon, proceeds to tease that he's going to do his traditional, post-match arm break to Reklusa. Instead, he goes out and grabs thumbtacks. So the Cero Miedo match is basically Lucha Underground's most extreme version of a no disqualification match that they had. It's a match that Pentagon and Vampiro competed at Ultima Lucha 1, and it was the only time that match had been done prior to this match with him and Marty. So he goes out, he gets thumbtacks, it teases that he's going to go for the package pile driver into that. Marty the Moth makes the save, and they do so many great tie-ins here because he makes the save with a barbed wire bat. It was a barbed wire bat that Pentagon used on Vampiro at the end of Ultima Lucha 2. So he makes the save with that. Reklusa dumps a bunch of gasoline on Pentagon, and Marty the Moth, teases that he's going to light Pentagon Jr. on fire, which is something we saw Pentagon tease with Vampiro prior to Ultima Lucha 1. And ultimately, he doesn't do it. Of course, they wouldn't go through with that stunt. and the show fades to the Lucha Underground logo as he blows out, you know, the Zippo lighter flame, which was a really cool segue. So I love this. This match is so much fun. It's absolutely crazy. It is a great way at establishing a new character as a threat right away, which Lucha Underground does a great job at. We'll talk more about that in the future. It's, you know, unexpectedly awesome, you know, with Chelsea Green busting out a lot of really great stuff and taking a lot of big moves. And you get this awesome post-match that ties together all of these other little stories from previous Ultima Lucha before, you know, resulting in what would ultimately end up being the last ever Lucha Underground match between Marty and Pentagon. This match is a great success. We've talked about it with Lucha Underground. It may still be available on Tubi for free. I'm not sure. It was on iTunes. It was on Netflix. If you Google search it, you'll be able to find it one way or another. You can subscribe to my channel here, of course, on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. And please join me again tomorrow as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50. Top 50.